All right, guys, welcome back. Before we get into the news today, we've got a new channel member we would like to say thank you to right now. Nate Trewin or Trewin. I don't know how to say that. Let us know in the comment section below, Nate. Tier 1 membership. Thank you so very much, man. That is so generous of you. I appreciate it. Also, thank you to all of the other channel members as well. Blake Dowell, Racing Vagabond, Easy Does It, Skyke, Bill Gillies. Those guys have been around the longest as channel members. Also, Scaloner. We got Brent Baer up there, Christopher Thacker, Jay Strasser, Ed Minus, Ryan Farnsley, John O'Neill, Caleb Johnson, Matt Parsons, and of course, Ryan Showalter. We introduced him to the channel yesterday as well. So thank you all very, very much. Nate Trewin, new channel member. Thank you for the generosity, man. And I don't know what else to say other than thank you. You guys are awesome. Oh my goodness, what happened here? We've got to fix this. There we go. So here's the news for the day. Eric Prutzman no longer will be the crew chief for Brad Sweet in 2025. This ends a long-time partnership between driver and crew chief and team as well. And I would say they were pretty good. They only won what was it? 5 Outlaw championships in a row, a high limit racing championship, 70+ wins over the last 6-7 years. So in my opinion, this is kind of a big deal. Maybe I'm kind of underestimating that. I think it may be a huge deal potentially just to see how it goes at the beginning of the year next year. I wonder if they'll get some races in under their belt before they, go into the high limit racing season. But basically, replacing Eric Prutzman is going to be Ty Wolfgang. And we've talked about Ty Wolfgang on this channel already in the last couple of weeks because Ty Wolfgang was supposed to go to CJB Motorsports. And that does not appear to be happening anymore. Ty Wolfgang taking the Uno reverse card and slamming it down and going right back to where he came from at Casey Kane Racing. I believe, from what I have been told, that Ty Wolfgang was not wanting to work with the new driver that is going to be at CJB Motorsports, the one that nobody knows about quite yet. It has not been unveiled, but Ty Wolfgang did not want to work with that driver. Eric Prutzman leaves the crew chief job at Casey Kane Racing. Ty Wolfgang was the car chief already, so it kind of worked out that he can go right back and be a part of KKR and have that upgraded role that he was already looking for. So yeah, Ty Wolfgang next year will be his 4th year at Casey Kane Racing. He is 23 years old right now, so pretty young for a crew chief. And pretty young to be a crew chief on a team that is of that caliber, right? I mean, this is the #1 team in the country for the last 5 years, at least 6 years as well. And so he's going to have some big shoes to fill, obviously, and we'll see if he can live up to the pressure and live up to the hype of, this team. We know that they are championship contenders each and every year. We know they're going to win 8 to 10 to 12 races each and every year, be in the mix for the crown jewel events. And we'll see if Ty Wolfgang can keep that speed up with this car. So Eric Prutzman, he will be joining Casey Kane next year on a part-time schedule as the crew chief. He will be overseeing the major operations going on at Casey Kane Racing. Now, I did want to mention this as well. This story was broken by Jeremy Elliott last night. This is not me breaking this news. Jeremy Elliott did put this out on his channel, or on his Twitter yesterday and on his channel this morning. And so I'm going to give Jeremy Elliott all the credit he deserves because he is the one that broke this story. Although I did know about this at the last race of the year at High Limit Racing at Texas Motor Speedway, as well as at the banquet. There were some rumblings that Eric Prutzman was not going to be a full-time crew chief next year. And I thought it wouldn't be announced for a while. So this is pretty quick that this was already unveiled and everybody knows about it now. So Eric Prutzman, yeah, we kind of saw this coming, at least if you were kind of in the know of things at the racetrack and whatnot. But you hate to see that because Eric Prutzman, one of my favorite guys in the pit area as far as crew chiefs go. He is always gracious with his time, except for he doesn't really like to talk on the camera very much back in the day when I was a pit reporter with the Outlaws. But still, Eric was an awesome guy, and we'll still get to see him quite a bit. Now, what this tells me is Casey Kane is no longer going to be a full-time high-limit driver. I do have a question mark there because maybe Eric Prutzman's part-time on the road with Casey Kane just for every now and again at the high-limit races, and he has somebody else be the crew chief for the other races. But that leads me to believe that Casey Kane probably is no longer a full-time driver with High Limit Racing. And if that's the case, yeah, that sucks. Obviously, Casey Kane does draw the fans in. He's a well-known guy. And yeah, well, I guess we'll wait and see what the official word is, but that kind of makes it sound like he will not be a full-timer next year. So as I mentioned earlier, this ends a 7-year partnership with Brad Sweet and Eric Prutzman. Before Prutzman was Brad Sweet's crew chief, he was the crew chief in 2017 for Darren Pittman at Casey Kane Racing. He was a crew chief for Joey Saldana at Roth Motorsports. And then he was at Tony Stewart Racing with Donnie Schatz for 4 of his championships in the mid-2000s, late, mid-2010s and things like that. So Prutzman has been around the block. He knows exactly what he's doing, and we see that every single weekend at the racetrack. So as I mentioned, his main duty now will be to oversee the operations on a bigger scale at Casey Kane Racing, and then do the part-time schedule with Kane as far as the crew chiefing side of things goes. Now, this could be big for Casey Kane. Eric Prutzman obviously gets a lot of wins with Brad Sweet. Now, could this work out to where Casey Kane maybe finally gets that first national sprint car win? We don't know, but that is definitely a guy to have in your corner that will help lead to that success if it does happen. So I am interested to see how Casey Kane will race next year with a very, very experienced and a very well-known and accomplished crew chief helping him out. Clearly, the 49 car has an incredible baseline setup. We've seen that every single weekend for the last 6 or 7 years, right? They go on the racetrack. They might not be the fastest, but they've got a setup when they get to the racetrack that it's already on the car, and it's very, very close to being where it needs to be at. And they just fine tune on that and get it dialed in to where it's one of the best cars on the track. But earlier this year, we did see Brad Sweet go with a 35 race winless drought with High Limit Racing. My question is, can Ty Wolfgang overcome that adversity and be able to pull through and not, not have a meltdown or not, get discouraged and things like that, and still put his best foot forward with this team and get Brad Sweet back to victory lane? Now, I'm not saying it's all crew chief. It's all crew chief. Brad Sweet is an incredible driver. He can outperform the car if it's not doing the things that it needs to be doing. But obviously, you need to have something relatively close to be able to compete up front. And so if they cannot get that, if they go through another slump like we saw this year, that could certainly have some adverse effects when it comes to the championship next year with High Limit Racing, especially if we get some other guys joining the series and guys that are very good at points racing and things like that. But that is something I do have some concerns with. The other thing I have concerns with is that car does not have any, never has any mechanical problems. It never blows up. It never breaks in half. Nothing ever falls off of it. Everything always is working great with the 49 car. And I think that is contributed to Eric Prutzman and his very, very attentive, attention to detail, right? Every single weekend. Now, I'm not saying that Ty Wolfgang does not have attention to detail at all. I'm not saying that. But Eric Prutzman has been doing it for 7 years. He knows every nook and cranny on that race car. Obviously, the car never breaks. But can that continue on next year with Ty Wolfgang being the guy in charge? We don't quite know who the rest of the crew will be. Obviously, Prutzman leaves. That puts Wolfgang into that spot. Who's going to be the car chief? Who will be the tire guy? We do not have that information quite yet. But that is another question mark that I have about this move going into next year. And like I said, how much will this affect the championship next year with High Limit Racing? Brad Sweet won this year by over 200 points. But at the beginning of the year, if Tyler Courtney didn't kind of go off the rails there about midway through the season, this would have been much, much closer. And next year, if Tyler Courtney goes on a run like that again, and Brad Sweet and Ty Wolfgang don't have everything dialed in, this could certainly affect things when it comes to that championship. Rico Abreu, he had a tough start to the year. If he can get going strong next year, then maybe things will be a lot closer. I think that they will. I think next year things will be a lot closer with this move, and that is no slander towards Ty Wolfgang, but it is hard to replicate the success that Eric Prutzman has had over the last couple of years with this driver. Now, the final thing I have here on the board, this just adds a serious question mark to CJB Motorsports. Somehow, almost every video I've put out has some kind of tie-in with CJB right now. They lose their crew chief before it even starts, and they're supposed to race coming up here very, very soon at that Bridgeport Motorsports Park race, the Dirty Jersey, whatever it's called. And they're supposed to have the new driver in the car. They were supposed to have Ty Wolfgang there. And now they don't have a crew chief as of at least right now that we know about. Will Barry Jackson will he be going to Bridgeport and helping out the new driver? We don't know, but that leaves a serious hole in that team's plans for 2025. And they're going to have to try and make some phone calls and and throw some text messages, some emails out, maybe throw a one of those, the pigeon with the little note on its foot or whatever you got to do to try and get a crew chief for next year, unless Barry Jackson changes everything and decides to come back onto the road because they don't have anybody else. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but that is a big question mark I have as well. So definitely a couple of question marks in here, but I do think that this, this will not affect Brad Sweet in a huge way because they are just so good already. They already have the setup. If Ty Wolfgang can't figure something out, Eric Prutzman is one phone call away, and then maybe sometimes he'll be one pit stall away to help him out and get things dialed back in. We'll have to wait and see how it works out. We still have a lot of time until Highland Racing starts back up, and it's going to be interesting next year to see how this pairing will go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below your thoughts on this news that we've got going on right here. Putting out this video a little bit early today. I'm going to see the Toronto Maple Leafs play against the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. $76 tickets for Lower Bowl Row H. Could not pass that up. So we're going to go see Austin Matthews, William Nylander, all those guys try and take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're on a back-to-back, so maybe the Jackets will have a good game. I'm not counting on it. But, yeah, we'll be going to a hockey game tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. And tomorrow we'll be talking to you guys again. So we'll talk to you again soon.